Refresh Franchising, the heroic choice for entrepreneurs. Proud sponsor of the Distilled Wisdom podcast.
Come into this world of franchising and realize like, oh, this is like, it's a mental puzzle that's fun to solve, right?
That's the future of getting your name out there is pay the influencer, make or become the influencer.
Unbelievable trajectory with how fast things are changing with AI. I mean, franchisors are very prevalent on LinkedIn.
It's almost hard to imagine what life was without the
devices.
Computer in your pocket. Try to go a full day without a phone.
But to tie this back to franchising,
sorry. It's good.
I love the rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's good to mix up the episodes. So,
but this is fantastic. I enjoy it. But I'm just thinking of like, one of the really cool things. I'm going back to the subject we had a minute ago about, trying to heal the wounds of our divisive times, right? And I love that in franchising, we are advocating for what should be bipartisan. I touched on this earlier, but I love that we have a chance to actually be around this organization. By that, I mean the IFA, who was really pushing for something that benefits all of society in this country. And it is genuinely, I guess maybe it's preachy, but like those who have from the side of the aisle that opposes it more, when they do voice their support for franchising, they recognize that it is beneficial to the small business owners that are in their communities, right? So it is advocating for something that can make positive change and that can really actually heal communities. So that is something that I immediately took to when I came into the franchising space, and I started, reading what the IFA puts out and listening to, to the voluminous work that they put out for us to educate us.
It makes you wonder why they don't understand, the impact. I can understand somebody that, the average person that's not into business or not into politics or, that I get, right? Like not understanding that Dunkin' Donuts is not it is a giant corporation, but that the franchisees are independent owners in their area, right? I get like most people not knowing that at the surface level. But when it comes to somebody that's impacting policy or that is in the business space, right? Like, how could they not see it as valuable? It's almost impossible, right? Like they account for, what is it, 30% of the economy, or I don't quote me.
I think, the numbers are staggering for how much of the GDP is driven by franchising.
It's a massive amount of our GDP and everybody's livelihood. And again, and they're local. So you would think that a representative for District Blank in, this state would be all over it, no matter where you're at on the aisle, right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't matter. It's like, this is your district. These people are your business owners in that district that make sure that you get tax revenue, right? These are the ones that can help fund your campaign. That it doesn't matter which side of the aisle they're on. It's again mind-boggling to me that it would be in their best interest as a politician, whether you agree with how they're funded or any of this, or taxes or any of it. It doesn't matter. It's in their best interest for these to do well, right? It's kind of like not supporting it is shooting yourself in the foot. Why?
But again, and that's where some of the advocacy efforts are needed to make it more known to the general populace why franchising is different than how it's perceived. By that, I mean that it is the small business. It's getting that message out, not just to the politicians, but to the communities to understand, hey, come, support your local business owners. This is a local business owner. I know it's a national brand, but this is your neighbor's business. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like back to sorry. We need more drinks. Like the corporate Dunkin' Donuts is not the one supporting the Little League baseball team in the small town, right? No, that's the local franchise owner that's doing that. It's corporate's never going to do that. I mean, any major corporation that size, right, isn't going to be the one that's getting that granular into the community.
Yeah.
So you told me you still play baseball today.
Yeah, I'll be 41 in a couple of weeks, but I've been playing baseball my entire life, and I've tried to give it up, and then I keep getting roped back in. So I'm a right-handed junk ball pitcher now, but still able to compete. I've mostly there's one league I play in that still has guys that are 18 years old. I'm like, guys less than half my age, and it's fun playing against them and still being able to compete with them. But most of with over 30 leagues, and those are a little less competitive, more fun. But yeah, I've still been playing ball. I played in college, Division III at Muhlenberg College, which is in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And but it's funny how it becomes a part of you for so long. It's just a huge part of my social milieu back at home. It's just guys that I played baseball with for years. So
is it a release, I'd imagine, too, right? Like
it's a humbling game. And yeah, there are times when it is a release. There's other times when it's like, if I'm pitching and everything's getting smoked to left or to right, you're like, why do I keep doing this to myself? It's a reason to stay in shape too. During like 2020 and 2021, I wasn't, or those years prior, I had given up baseball, and then I got way out of shape. And then all of a sudden, I missed playing after sitting indoors all year in 2020. So I go back into playing. So I got myself back in some kind of decent shape and was able to start playing ball again. But
do you think sports transition into business in any way? Do you think
there are certain definite carryover effects? I mean, just it's funny. I think about like my persona, like the different roles that I've had throughout my life, just as a pitcher on the baseball field, right? As I was a bartender for years, right? Saying that you're in the center of the action. The pitcher in baseball is the center of the field. All eyes are on the pitcher, and it's like you're sort of like the focal point for all the action starts there. And the bartender was kind of the same way. And then over the years, I became the lead singer in a band. That's kind of the same thing. And so in business, as a for better or worse, my role is to be frontman for and it wasn't a personality. It wasn't like I was ever like that super out personality that needed I just found a comfort level being the calm in the midst of chaos. So it's really, going to a conference with thousands of people is actually enjoyable for me. I love it because some people can be stressed out by it, and me, I'm just like, I feel at home. Like, oh yeah, my analogy is I'm like a pinball or those lottery balls.
Yeah,
and they're like banging, like the little ping pong balls banging around the machine. I say I'm just like, you prepare in advance. You know who you want to talk to or whatever, but once you enter the conference, you are one of those lottery balls banging around the machine, and you don't know which other lottery balls you're going to bang up against. But just from years of being, again, a pitcher, a bartender, and
see, I admire that personality, and I admire that quality in people, because that's not one of my strong suits. You're actually one of the people that helped me, kind of introduce around a little bit, and you kind of took me under your wing. There's a couple people at the first one I went to that helped with that. I have another one coming on the show this week too. But that just kind of extended a hand and was like, hey, I'm going to introduce you around, and I'll, introduce you to someone.
Dude.
And having that social battery to be able to do that is, not everybody has it. They just don't. It's not a natural thing for everybody, right?
Makes me so happy to hear you say that, because that's mostly what I focus on. I'm just like, I like to be nice to people. I like just to I'm just a dude, right? Like I just like to I know so and so, and I know this other person, and I want to connect them, and I enjoy doing that. I genuinely like connecting people. To be like, the analogy is like to be the oil in the engine of the social economy that surrounds me. And I just feel like the more I'm able to connect this to that you watch connections grow. And I saw when you say that I'm glad
you're accomplishing things, right?
And helping others accomplish things, which I genuinely find enjoyment out of that. So it's funny. After I've only been in franchising 2 years, but I had come from when I was in the apparel and footwear world. There was a lot of trade shows, which I loved that. I always totally enjoyed being part of those. And
you wouldn't guess, right? You come to one of these events, everybody knows who you are already. 2 years and you're pretty well known
Awesome.
throughout everybody, at the conventions and everything that I've been to anyway.
Well, I've been very lucky. I've been introduced to people who have introduced me to others, and that's also a testament to the franchise world, which is like a very friendly space, and people want to help others for the most part, and help to connect others. So yeah, it's fun to be here and just to see connections proliferate and to see the energy of people. Like I was just talking a minute ago, I said I would love to introduce you to Angela because I think that would be wonderful for like understanding like the role of the field coach in a franchise system. She's fantastic speaking to that. So, but this it's all about helping people make connections, and that's why to be for better or worse, like I said, the front man. It's the term has some stigma to it sometimes, but as that's my role in my band. But it wasn't
role.
It wasn't an inborn trait with me, but it was a learned trait. Just like I found myself in a number of situations where I was, for whatever reason, the focal point, and it's like even though I was not born comfortable doing that, I just developed a comfort level doing it, and now I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to I was so lucky to meet so many people so quickly in franchising, and I had Cater Danford, who I work with, Derek Abelman. They had done so much work connecting Northeast Color to the franchise space. So when I came into Northeast Color, it was like a natural segue that Cater would be like, Pete, this is so and so, and I would just and the goodwill naturally just passed along. And so I was very lucky to quickly meet as many people as I did. So
stay with us. We'll be right back.
Citizens of Distilled Wisdom, gather around and listen up. If you're a fan of the show and want to join forces with its host, Adam Ferricane, then Refresh Franchising is the perfect choice for you. So gather your courage, summon your inner superhero, and visit refreshfranchising.com to launch your heroic franchise journey. Refresh Franchising, the heroic choice for entrepreneurs, proud sponsor of the Distilled Wisdom podcast.
There's so many franchisors and franchisees out there, but it's really actually a small space.
Feels that way. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very intimate when it comes to that. And to your point, people are so willing to help. I remember the first convention I went to, and I had people willing to run through my onboarding process for me on, just volunteering to do this, executives.
Yeah.
Volunteering their time to run through, my onboarding and to see if it's up to snuff, right? And to test it for me and get an outside opinion on it. That was just mind boggling to me that they are offering to sacrifice their time because it's valuable time, right?
I think that people too, in this space, in the franchise space, there's an intellectual curiosity about the practice of franchising itself, right? We've all kind of come into this world of franchising and realize this is it's a mental puzzle that's fun to solve, right? And so I'm sure these executives that the ones you're just talking about, helping you solve that puzzle was probably a fun intellectual game or challenge for them. Yeah. Just something that's this is to apply your framework of knowledge of franchising to this particular set of, a solution that was needed to a problem that existed in this environment. I think that was they probably enjoyed that as much as you enjoyed having them weigh in on it.
Yeah. And also seeing inner workings of, how somebody's doing something, which nobody's really shy about that stuff here too. I noticed that, this works for my company, blah, blah, blah. And they're not, trade secrets is a thing, but it's not as prevalent, right? Most people are really open about this works for me. This doesn't work. Here's why. And they're willing to share that information very openly.
Yeah.
And they're not guarded like a lot of private, separate non-franchise businesses are.
Yeah.
If I tell anybody this secret, they'll compete with me. And they don't view it that way. There's enough meat on the plate for everybody. Right. And that's how they view it. They have a abundant mindset instead of the scarcity mindset that you do see in a lot of smaller business and corporate model. I've had other businesses before be guarded like that or be very hyper competitive with me in the local market. Right. And they're like, because now I'm a target in my market, right? I'm one of the larger companies in my space.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so I've become not always, but
target on your back. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're curious what I'm doing and they watch me a little bit closer,
Yep.
right? Competitors do. And I've had some of them that kind of hold that, like, they make me a target and I'm looking at it the other way. It's like, I'm not really thinking about you. I don't care.
Yeah.
Aside from if you have a good tip or you're doing something well, I might actually steal it from you and use it. Right. But I don't see a problem with that. If you see something we're doing well, use it. I don't care. I win my clients because of the people I hire, not necessarily just the system. It's the people within
the culture,
the culture in the company. So I'm not worried about competition. I'll just, okay, cool. You do this same, whatever. I say it's a checklist, right? Hey, you copy my checklist and you use it. Do you really think that's no, it's not going to impact my business. I don't care.
Yeah.
Take it all day. My clients stick with me because we take good care of them. So if you want to compete in that way, that's great. That brings up the standards in the whole industry. And that's awesome.
You hear it get said so much in franchising, and there's a lot of cliches that are so true. And it's the reason they're cliche, but the high tide raises all ships, right?
Right.
And you hear that said in franchising. It's so true, though. It's that what you're talking about, people genuinely look to help even their competitors in this space.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a big part of the reason that I immediately felt like I was at home in the franchise world. It's like-minded individuals. But there's different skill sets. Some people have a stronger operations mind. Some people have a stronger, business development, sales type mind. And, it's interesting to watch that, but to watch the interplay of the personalities and the different types of brands. And one thing I find so fascinating too, and this is kind of another talking about the intellectual puzzle of franchising and why it's so fascinating to be a part of. I always wanted to have my finger on the pulse of the whole nation, right? Kind of like I mentioned John Steinbeck's book, Travels with Charlie, earlier. And I don't know if you know, it's a book that he wrote. It was nonfiction. I think he fictionalized parts of it, but the whole concept was he was an American writer who he had gotten to be about 60 years old. And he said, I felt like I lost touch with the country that I've been writing about, and I want to go take a big road trip and rediscover it. And so he buys a Winnebago and names it after Don Quixote's horse, and then brings his dog Charlie with him, and they just go on this long road trip around the country. And but just that same idea of getting a finger on the pulse of the country, I've always felt that when I do go on road trips and when I travel, and you start to see what brands are the franchise brands, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a connectedness of the whole nation. And like I said, if I'm sitting in Rhode Island for months on end, I start to feel stir crazy. That's the wanderlust in me, right?
Sure.
So, franchise world, within which I get to travel, but also to meet people from all over the country who are representing brands from all over the country that are serving the interests of people, on a wide ranging, everything from the service brands to the fitness concepts to the cookie brands to you name it, right? But it's what's hot right now. It's so fascinating to watch, to have direct visibility into what's driving the culture, what's changing, right? All the different concepts that come along are a big part of what's hot right now. And it's fun to watch that. Anyway, this is me on a tangent now, but it's so fascinating to be able to be part of that world. So it's one of the most fun things about franchising. And then the people that are in it, you get to, it's a wide variety of types of people and interests coming together. And franchising itself is vertical agnostic. It is a vertical into itself. I heard it said somewhat recently, it was franchising is really, it's a distribution method, right? For goods and services. And it is, I guess in one way its own vertical, but it is vertical agnostic in terms of, I don't know, it's such a fascinating space. It's an intellectual puzzle that we get to solve together and build together, which is what's so fun about coming to the IFA convention and seeing it all come together in one large show, and we're all pushing and helping each other grow. So,
it's cool because you'll have, you're talking about different verticals, right? I was talking about this on the chat with Lauren, and she was talking about how she's really close friends with the Dunkin' crowd, or some of the people from Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm having a conversation with somebody from Dunkin' Donuts, and they have the identical same problems that I have. And we're talking franchisee to franchisee, right? But she's a UPS store. They're a Dunkin' Donuts, and it's like, yeah, but it's still the same job, and it's still, it's still the same role and the same challenges, regardless of the vertical that you're in. And the fact that you can take stuff from a donut and coffee shop and utilize that in a shipping store, right? It's just cool. And it's the same thing like home service. I'm in home service. There's stuff that I can take away from a pizza franchise that is beneficial in the home service side of things.
Yeah.
And that's a cool, it's just a cool aspect of, being around the different verticals, all brought together with franchising, because you don't see that outside of franchising. If here, you'll have an association, a national association of plumbers, right? And that National Association of Plumbers is going to have a convention. And they do, by the way. I think this is a real thing. I'm not positive. I'm not a plumber.
I believe it.
But there's a national convention, right? For the plumbing industry, or for the painting, or whatever it is, right? Or for restaurants.
Yeah.
And you go to that. Yeah, you're going to get tips. You're going to get benefits, and you're going to get all these things, but you're only going to get stuff from that vertical. And everybody is talking shop about the one vertical. And they end up, especially trades. So if we're focusing on trades, the trade people tend to be really hyper focused on the trade and less on the business. Not always, but a lot of the bigger ones, not necessarily, but a lot of the trades guys, right? Or it's, what's the best fitting for the plumbing type on this pipe, right? It's that type of stuff that they end up spending their time talking.
Get really granular on that. Yeah.
And when you're in the franchise thing, it might be a plumbing franchise that's learning from a restoration franchise, because they do some plumbing, and they're like, well, actually, if you do this and this process in your bidding, we found this to be more effective in your pricing structure and increase your margin by blank.
Yeah.
Right? It's that type of stuff that you can get from cross. And you might find that from a restaurant like a Dunkin' Donuts, or say it's a candy store. The candy store might have this inventory management system that translates over to this service company to manage their nuts and bolts and, in inventory to make sure that they're keeping costs down. It's crazy how some of that stuff can cross over and cross pollinate across the industries. Yeah. And so a lot of it originates with franchises, and then it'll carry down, because what the franchises do, especially the big ones, right, is what the other privately owned companies end up following.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Oh, yeah.
You'll see, you've got a corporate run business, and it could be a large business, but most of the R&D, in my opinion, tends to come from the franchise models, because they're the ones that are always trying to improve.
Yeah.
Right. The corporate model will end up floating, and then they'll adjust after the franchise model has proven it and it works. Then they'll adopt it.
A verification of method. Yeah.
So they take advantage of it in that way, which who cares? But it's just interesting that it's cooler to be part of the creative.
And that's the intellectual puzzle that we're all enjoying solving together. Right. But we're at the forefront and getting to watch it all happen, to watch where the sausage is made, if you will, for what moves society, what moves commercial trends, and then to see what types of marketing comes out around that. If you have anyone who has a mind for marketing and the psychology behind marketing, it's fun to watch how these different brands try to reach customers with the ever evolving technologies and social platforms, et cetera. So
everything's shifting. So like our marketing strategy is rapidly changing right now. I didn't have to do a lot of marketing in my local business because we're more B2B.
Yep.
So our sales efforts are very similar to like how you would sell, right? So trade shows, but in my industry, and, out there knocking doors and doing networking. And meeting the decision makers in the companies and so forth. That worked really, really well for my business, and it'll work really, really well for my franchisees in their local level, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to selling a franchise, things are shifting up a little bit. And the more we branch into the consumer side of the market, so the general homeowner, right? Marketing becomes a little quite different. And the traditional methods, like I've talked about this on another episode, which I don't know is live because I don't know what order these are releasing in. But one of the earlier episodes we filmed today was talking about the changes with Google algorithm or with their cookies and everything.
Yeah.
And there's shifts happening right now in marketing that honestly, I don't even think are as relevant. He had a hyper focus on it. What I think is most relevant is the fact that the subconscious of the consumer or the mind of the consumer, we've developed these blocks to ads. Like they exist and people don't even realize they're doing it or that it exists. It happens, right? So it might register a little bit in the subconscious, but when an ad shows as an ad, it doesn't exist. We don't see it. It blinks it out, right?
Our brains often function as deletion devices.
Yeah.
There's a guy named Jim Quick, who the speed reading guy, but he talks about that a lot. It's like our brains are literally programmed. Like if it's not important, we can delete it. We can just block it out.
And they're doing that more and more, right? Because social media advertising is really what I'm talking about, is that type of advertising, right? So back just 5 years ago, Facebook ads and everything. And I'm not a marketing expert, but I'm giving my feedback on what I'm seeing, right? And back then, now it's getting more expensive. You have to have higher reach to get people to click through. And it's just not registering the same way with the consumer. Also, I don't, your audiences are different on Facebook today. That platform's kind of dying. But, then you look at the short form content that came out, the period we don't mention, right? That got real popular.
Yeah.
The short form with the talk.
Yeah.
And when that all started becoming popular, it even shortened our attention spans even further. And I did it. I made the mistake of like the ads you would run on those platforms, being your ad, right? Like, hi, I'm so-and-so cleaning company, that type stuff does not work. And all you're doing is flushing money. You might get some brand recognition out of it. If that's your goal, just to get your brand logo in front of people, sure, maybe. But you're not, right now there's an opportunity for you to almost do it organically on some of the platforms, simply by creating authentic content that it isn't an ad. It literally just don't sell them. Just let them know what you do in a nonchalant way. Right. Yeah. So I showed you earlier what we're doing with the local service TikToks, right? Yeah. And it's literally just time lapse of us doing work, with a cool story.
With a cheeky sense of humor.
Yeah. And a little sense of humor mixed into it. And there's no branded logo plastered on the screen. There's no phone number. There's no website. There's no anything. And back in the day, that would be crazy, right? You're not advertising. You have to tell them who to call, right? No, the only way we're getting our brand into the scene is it's on the back of the shirt of the person cleaning.
Yeah.
Right. That's how we get our brand worked in naturally so that it's not getting blocked out.
Yep.
And then it's just, our goal is just to get them to follow us. We can educate them little by little
as
over
they continue to see your content by engaging with those platforms.
Exactly. And so I think that's where the social advertising is going to end up going. And it is a lot of the paid content you're getting right now. You wouldn't even know that it was paid content unless it said it, right? So there's like sponsored videos. That's where the influencers come in and everything like that. That's the future of getting your name out there, is pay the influencer, to make or become the influencer. And that's why we do the podcast, right? Yeah. That's part of the reason for this show, is try to make authentic content that people want to enjoy. And if they enjoy it or they find value in it, some of them might buy from you.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of platforms too, like I'm betting on the X platform, formerly known as Twitter, making another comeback. It's gone in cycles before, but it's certainly a lot of people disengaged from it in the last couple of years. But the people that are on there, like there are some very prominent voices that maintain an audience there and are loyal to it and continue to, you can shout into the void sometimes, but I definitely I've noticed by recently kind of I created an X account. I've dabbled with them in the past as well, and I deleted them. I was like, this is stupid. But, over the course of years, have gone in and out of it. But I'm noticing in the franchise space, so franchisors are very prevalent on LinkedIn, right? Like LinkedIn's the platform that is like all there for the franchisor.
If you're a supplier out there, that's where
it is. Yeah. And I'll be the first one to say that, a big part of how I was able to connect with people quickly in the franchise space is through connecting with them on LinkedIn. But I've noticed there's a different type of franchise conversation taking place on X, which is a lot of the investors, the multi-unit franchisees, the SMB crowd. They call it SMB Twitter or SMBX, right? Like they've got this. They talk about their plays in the equity space. Sometimes they'll talk about the brands they're investing in. So it's a way to engage with a different segment of the franchise crowd. So I found that very interesting. But I feel like that.
Now you just sold me on it. We were talking about it earlier, and I was telling you I'm not very active on there, but that's the crowd I need to reach. So I need to spend more time on X if that's the case, right? I need franchisees. So
I'm betting on it making another comeback. It's gone in cycles before where it dipped down. Oh, Twitter's done, and all of a sudden Twitter came back, and that's so. Elon Musk is doing some interesting things with it too. Like he integrated the Grok, which is his own AI, or actually the X platform's own AI chatbot. But there's different things he's doing, and he democratized the blue check mark by taking it away from, you're just not just a journalist, but if you pay to the platform, which I've started to do that. It's like $20 a month for like the premium.
They're doing it on Instagram too. It's funny. They all were like riding him about the blue check mark and charging for it.
Yeah.
And then Instagram's all of a sudden charging for theirs, right?
Yeah.
What's up with that?
But we're talking about a guy that has done literally world-changing things with it, and he's maintained a presence in all these different companies at once. It's mind-blowing. But so I'm just betting on that platform. And he has plans for not just using it the way Twitter used to be, but for expanding it into many other.
I'm not sure if this is
use cases.
I feel like I'm almost like having deja vu here from my earlier podcast, because Musk came up there too. And my opinion on it is that he's buying data. That's why he bought Twitter. He wanted the data information from Twitter. He's data farming, right? Like he has a vision where and I'm not going to put words in his mouth but the guy wants to go to Mars, self-driving cars. He now has robots, right? Like, look at the stuff he's building. And the most important thing to what he needs for his vision of the future is information and data. And he got a lot of that data.
Yeah.
Through,
What's interesting about the Grok AI that he has, or they've integrated with it, is that it, with X being the marketplace of ideas, where so many people have from so many different levels of thought and walks of life have all just weighed in. Well, this AI is searching the marketplace of ideas that people have put in there. It's not just the internet, but it's specifically that platform where so many different ideas have intersected, and it's able to draw from that. Yeah, it's different than using, say, ChatGPT, because it's actually drawing from Twitter or X, the tweets that have been out there.
What would be interesting is to see which yields the best results.
I have found strong. I haven't used it a ton, but I definitely enjoyed playing with Grok, and it has you can use it with a sense of humor. It's got a funny mode too, and like it'll be sarcastic, which is
so. We talked about this too earlier, and part of that was like where we're going with AI and everything. Like people researching their information is kind of going out the window, and they're just looking. Eventually, the prompt is going to give you your answer, right? It already does that, but
Sure.
who controls the answer, and how far do people actually investigate the answer? Right. So if we get into the habit, which is what humans do, they create a habit. And so like we learn to default to going to the internet and searching through, a browser like Google, right? Or not a browser, but, a search engine.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And before we used to go to the thesaurus and the dictionary and right.
Before that, the Dewey Decimal System. You go to
exactly.
the library,
we had to go to the library,
pull the friggin', cut the card.
But the way that we accessed information has made a couple pivotal shifts over a short period of time. And when you start integrating now in AI, and it's not actually AI. I mean, it's not actual intelligence. It's computer learning. But they still have what I'm saying is that they still have the ability to control it to an extent, right? There's still parameters on it, because I've been able to have it say, no, this can't happen. I'm not doing what you were asking, or I won't do that, right? And so they're still on the back end controlling it. They haven't lost control of it yet. It's not setting it. What's the word? Yeah. So it's not self-aware yet or anything.
Oh, sentient.
Sentient.
Yeah. Not a sentient being.
Yeah. So they're still actually able to pull the strings. By they, I mean whoever developed the software, right?
Yeah.
That means that to an extent, I'd imagine they can still control the responses to certain prompts. And so if you wanted to control the information, and again, I'm not talking a conspiracy theory here. This is just a reality. Is like Google does this already. They can.
We lived through said time period.
Yeah.
We watched. Yeah. Anyway.
So but it's the same thing as the search engine, but at least there was competition to it. And so back to your point, what Elon Musk is doing is like creating the DuckDuckGo, or is that it? That was it.
Yeah. DuckDuckGo.
DuckDuckGo of AI. That's what it sounds like to me. And I think that's
there's
healthy.
other ones out there too. I'm not as well versed in it, but it's their.
Well, Google has two. Or they have their beta. They have BART, and then they have the other one that they're integrating. Like it's in beta right now on the browser, where I forgot what it's called.
There's another one called Claude, I think, by Anthropic, and there's a lot of them out. And I haven't played around with all of them, but it is interesting that as a way of not leaning on one too much. Like, for example, use the DuckDuckGo, and it is interesting to use different search engines. I'm not talking AI, I'm talking actual search engines, right? To watch, you type the same search thing into Google, and then you type it in. There's other search platforms, but DuckDuckGo is one that was known for being different, but
they sold. But
yeah, exactly. I say was, but I'm trying to think the name of the one. But there are other ones out there. I think Free Spoke, I think, is one of them. But with like,
there's a handful. There's another one called Cow.
You get way different results. I mean, you see it. It's like, well, who's controlling that information, or who's rigging it?
They say it's just based on how their search, system works. That's bullshit. It's.
Yeah. So it's, I guess that's the value of, and I use Google all the time, right? I mean,
sure.
Unless I'm trying to find something that might have a controversial answer, in which case I will not turn to that. But it's good to have a working knowledge of different search engines and of different AI or chat models, whatever you want to call them, learning language models, just for that same reason.
Well, because
if one of them is going to have a rigged answer, maybe we want to look at one that might not have a rigged answer.
Yeah.
I don't know. And they can also be confidently wrong, which is part of the problem.
That's what people aren't going to go further than the answer. That's my worry, right? And that's already what happens with search engines is they're going to, it's on your phone now, right? Yeah. So I have ChatGPT on my phone. I use it all the time. It's great for, drafting a quick response to something. But that's what they're going to start doing is like XYZ, what happened in blank year, that caused this. And it's going to give me an answer. And that's as far as most people are going to go. I guess I don't know what my point is, because that's essentially
we're at the frontier. We're at a Wild West kind of moment. And it's such a unbelievable trajectory, like how fast things are changing with AI. I mean, you blink and the next thing, like you watch a video from 6 months ago and it's like ancient news we're kind of experiencing this frontier, or we don't know what's next. We don't know how fast it's going to go. I wouldn't profess to have any like strong working knowledge of this, but there's the EAC movement, the E/ACC, and they're the ones there. I think they're like, humans were meant to co-evolve with this technology and to integrate with it. And I'm like, well, that's a fascinating concept that, I mean, I won't sneeze at it, but also there's an old school part of me that like still believes in like the handshake and like actually handing someone a business card instead of like the scanny thing, like. So I'm of both minds, right? I'm an ambivalent, like, we're the same. Yeah. So like, we're that like, micro generation between the Gen X and the.
What's funny is Gen X always likes to claim that they're the last one does that. And it's like, no, especially you and I, right? Our age specifically you're technically millennial, right? But
we had an analog childhood.
Yeah. We 100% experienced 99.9% of the things Gen X said they were the last to.
Yeah. I was just having this conversation yesterday with Derek Abelman talking this, and he was born in 79. But like, it's the same thing. It's like, there's this, I call it the micro generation, where we had the analog childhood, but the digital adolescence, where we were still young enough. Our brains were still like adaptable to learn how to use computers. And so, like learning how to write something in HTML wasn't too big of a stretch, even though we were born
MySpace
playing Sesame Street shit on our
we had to learn some, at least a copy and paste code.
Yeah.
To make our MySpace profile so that we could, add our theme song and, whatever, right? You had to do it with code back then, people. Can you imagine customizing your Facebook profile and having to actually, paste in code?
Wild. Yeah.
Yeah. You had to go search and find your theme you wanted and, actually put it in the code. Yeah. Oh, God. Good. I feel so old right now.
But, it's.
And we had the pager. I went from I played Oregon Trail on the one computer, right? And
you're no stranger to dysentery, right?
Yeah.
Dysentery. Yeah.
And I had the pager. Then I went to the one Nokia phone that everybody owned, and you had Snake on it. That was your game, right?
That's something, Oregon Trail. That was another, like, I still remember kindergarten class with the Apple computer, and I was just having this conversation recently too. Amy from Ben and Jerry's, we were joking about it. The memorizing, how I was getting thwarted by dysentery on the Oregon Trail in my kindergarten classroom.
I loved that game back then. I'd imagine I'd be bored within about 40 seconds now, but
yeah. Be a good retro throwback. Yeah. It's like playing Pong or Tetris now.
Or, we still had the bunny ear TVs.
Yeah.
Come on.
To think of how that pace of change is wild, right? Like we still remember. I still remember rotary phones, and it's like we're at this. Yeah, But think of our parents' generation, right? Like they grew up with like. I always remember hearing my dad say, "I used to go to Larry Lanata's house to watch Bonanza on the color TV." We take for granted that. Like
my favorite, my dad is on. We're watching one of those old movies, like back in like New York, right? And then there's the fruit cart in the neighborhood, right? The old guy pulling the cart with the donkey or whatever, right? And my dad actually remembers those.
Yeah.
Like, like the guy's still using a fucking donkey and he's selling fruit from a cart with a donkey in, Chicago, right?
This is why it's fun to be alive, though. It's fun to, and, to touch base on like, why celebrate New Year's, right? And like, this is the part of me that's not cynical. I love celebrating. Like we've lived to another year, and I find so much enjoyment out of like spanning different generations and spanning the gap of like, I was alive for this and then I was alive for that. And look at how far that's come. It's that to me is like, so to celebrate the milestone of ticking off.
Does it feel like, I don't know. What's weird is it's hard to remember the stuff we just talked about. And this is probably everybody that ages experience, but when we think back about Oregon Trail and Snake and stuff like that, right? It's almost hard to imagine what life was without
All
the
the devices.
computer in your pocket,
Yeah.
right? Which is the biggest change. It's just that access to the instant information.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. It is hard to, and could you go back? So I've joked about this with some friends is we've talked about having like a weekend where we shut the phones, you can't even check them.
Bring a couple books and
well, so I actually do
firewood.
this. You're going to think I'm absolutely crazy, but after this, I'm going to Denver and I have a board game in my truck. And
what's the game?
Risk.
Okay.
We conquer the world. And this is a kind of a tradition with two of my very good friends, and they both live in Denver. And we do this a couple times a year, and we rotate. Sometimes they fly to me in Ohio. Sometimes I go to them in Denver. And so this sounds insane to most people, but I have literally flown for one night to play a game of Risk in Denver on a board game.
Fantastic, though. I love it. I would do that with Monopoly. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, awesome.
So we have our retro nights, where we kind of step back into the old days and our younger years, but the phones don't go out. But we have talked about, maybe getting a cabin or something like that and just shutting it all off.
Yeah.
And see if we could do it. Cause I don't know if I can, to be honest with you. We're all addicted.
Oh, the dopamine hits you get.
Yeah.
Oh, you look at, I got a notification. Look at that. Yeah. Yeah. It legit. It's like a dopamine hit.
Mm-hmm.
You get like, oh, look at that. Somebody pinged me,
And if you do set it down long enough, you can go walk on the street, right?
Yeah.
And you literally, even people walking, which is very unsafe, they're all staring at their phone. And we used to complain about this more earlier when it started, becoming prevalent, but now even the older generation's doing it. And so everybody's hooked on the crack, right?
What's the alternate to that theory, though? People that say, like, here's a picture of the old generation on the subway train. They're all faces buried in a newspaper instead of, so like, but that I totally get your point. And it's like, I definitely enjoy going for a walk where
but there was
don't put on a
there's
podcast.
a break between
the birds.
There's a break between the newspaper, right? And what we're doing right now, right? It's a podcast. So that's why our phones are on silent and, turned out, right?
Yeah.
But if we were in a general social engagement, we probably would have checked our phones multiple times throughout this conversation, and even without realizing it, right?
Yeah.
That used to be
reflex.
rude. It's not rude anymore because everybody does it. And I think we should all do it. I'm going to challenge everybody out there in the audience. Try to go a full day without a phone, without a screen, right? No computer, no phone, no anything. Take a Saturday or a Sunday, turn them all off.
Go for a hike.
And and go grab tell me in the comments if anybody does this or has done this in the last, 5-10 years, right? I'd love to hear it.
Actually, you mentioned that. And of course, this is northern Maine. There's a state park called Baxter State Park, which is where Mount Katahdin is, which is actually the northern terminus of the Appalachian Trail. And I've climbed Mount Katahdin twice, but Baxter State Park is very remote. And so not just Mount Katahdin's there. There's actually, you can hike in with your backpack and a tent, whatever, 7 miles, right? But I mean, even when you're in the parking lot there, even this is maybe, I guess I haven't been there since like 2012. So maybe this has changed, but the nearest cell phone tower was a long way away. So, I mean, there was no service.
Right.
So you were forced to be off the grid essentially. And it was like, I was in there for days. And
you got to do it
most pristine. I still
voluntarily.
remember you're in this, you can put again, this is more than 10 years ago, but I'm guessing it hasn't changed much. You put $1 in the box on an honor system and rent the canoe, and you bring the canoe out onto the cleanest lake you've ever seen. You look down and there's logs from logging expeditions that are 70 feet below the surface of the water, but you can see them clear as day because the water is so clean. It's amazing. But you have to go off the grid to get to a place like that. But, now you're making me nostalgic for it. So.
Yeah. And we should all do it as some, I don't know, it'll reset something. Now, if you go without service because you're on something like that, that's also different. I mean, like, stay home and try to survive a day, right? In your normal activities, like cleaning the house and doing whatever, but not using.
And see how many people are mad at you for not responding all day.
Yeah, oh, God. That's another thing too, is like back in the day, even, when we had early text messaging where you had to use the numbers and right. Even then you could take a while to respond, right? Like that was normal. That was acceptable and everything. Today, if somebody doesn't respond to you and you're texting their phone, right?
Yeah.
Right away, it's like, okay, that they ignored it. They might've got preoccupied, but they saw it. Again, they saw it. There's no more. I didn't see your message. Right? The phone's attached to your hand.
What's that stat that like 98% of text messages get read? And it's like not the same for emails, but like text messages, we're always checking.
Even emails are now. That depends on the user, I think. But I don't know. I check my email probably too much. With this IFA thing, now I just go in there and clear it out. It's just a complete waste of time. Hey, no offense to the suppliers here, but holy crap.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. No, that's what I deliberately don't do an outreach campaign like that because I don't want to be that guy.
They all start the same too. I even made a LinkedIn post about it.
They all use the same.
It's all freaking chat GBT. So the first sentence of like half these emails is all the fucking same. I hope this email finds you well. Very original. Just lined up over and over again. You got the preview text. I hope this email finds you well. Hey, Adam, I hope this email finds you well. And it's all different vendors. And it's, yeah.
I'll confess. So last year was my first time coming to convention. And I was out in front of it last year. I had like, all right, I'm going to email all these. Just let them know I'm coming. Like, we'd love to have a conversation. And then as the weeks went on, we got closer to it. And I realized that I was just the first of 1,000. Like, I'm not doing that again. So like, but there's a less is more approach.
Nobody's even reading any of these. No.
But that's the thing. It's a relationship based space where it's like, you get much more traction.
Especially you're telling me to come see your booth. Like that's the vast majority of them too, is like, hey, we do this. We will be at booth blank. I'm going to walk around the booths. Just grab me when I walk by.
Okay.
And if you're legitimately sending it to me, which you're not, you're just, using the mail list. But if you legit want, to speak with me directly, cool, man. Remember my face from LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And then when I walk by, say, hey, Adam, we're connected on LinkedIn. And then have the conversation with me. But don't bombard me for a week straight with a generic chat GBT freaking email telling me to go to booth. Sorry, whoever has 289, right? I'll just make one up. That's made up. But,
it is remarkable the number of emails. There's been a lot. And you got the other ones too. They're all like, would you like a copy of the attendee list? But it's like from looks like a made up name. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. It is a lot. But yeah, so
now
as a supplier, I was, again, very conscious of that because even the suppliers that I know are like, oh my goodness, like this is
my whole team. Like we have a running joke in Slack about it. We have a whole thread talking about the emails from the IFA. Just like with all sorts of gifts in there.
Well, again, the value of LinkedIn, right? To create a network on there and to leverage that and just to be conversational and like,
have you tried Copilot yet?
I have not.
So I don't know how you do your Outlink reach or LinkedIn outreach. It's a very cool tool. The reason I purchased it isn't why I'm using it now. I'm using it for something else. But for suppliers, it's an AI tool that essentially finds the right prospects for you and starts direct messaging it's essentially timed.
Okay.
Outreach campaign using AI and your parameters on the type of people you want to get introduced to. And it automates your messages but it's coming from your profile directly. So it automates your outreach.
Yeah. I mean, I have this, like, I'm always ambivalent on these things because, like, my gut reaction is always like, I'm still old school. I like to have like a personalized touch to everything, but at the same time, I also don't like to sneer at productivity and ways to find ways to do more in less time. Right, that's the smart thing to do. So I'm always riding the fence of ambivalence of like, what value do I see on both sides? But yeah, I still will always want an old school approach, a personalized approach. I would never want to be caught writing something robotic.
So I think you'll like this if you do it right? So it's not robotic. It's really just kind of like the idea is just to connect. So you just essentially, you're going to play with your template. So yes, it's scripted, right? But it's 2 messages. And then if they don't reply, it's not bothering them, right? And if they do accept your connection or respond, it ends it and it notifies you and organizes it. And so instead of you having to go through your LinkedIn profile and sit there in your inbox, and again, I'm not using this either, by the way. My sales team is utilizing it. I don't have it on my account. So if you're getting messages from me, it's actually for me. But it puts it all in a neat, organized inbox, and it cuts it off. So when they reply, you're the one replying.
Okay.
Right. Yep. So it's not going to give an automatic response or anything like that. It's just, it's finding candidates based on your criteria, just giving that initial message. Mm-hmm. And so you can draft that in a very authentic way. And then if they respond to it, it's handing the ball to you. So it's just essentially making the initial cold reach.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I will certainly consider that.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's not, I don't remember what we pay for it, but it's not even all that expensive. It's like $500 a month or something. So. Nice. Pete, man, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I want to give you the opportunity to tell the people a little bit about Northeast Color.
Northeast Color, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we are a fabricator or manufacturer of signage and graphics for franchises. So at the end of the day, we make signs, and the whole idea is we are working on behalf of franchisors to understand what are all the branded elements that are going to go into their brick and mortar locations that make that brand specifically what it is. So we talk about immersive brand experiences and the concept of brick and mortar as the theater of brand experience, right? And so using good signage and consistent colors to bring that brand experience to life for your customers. Your walls are always speaking to your customers. You're always able to tell the story of what your brand is. And
do you help them with the planning, or are you guys just the production side of things?
We are the production side of things. There are certain times, so I'll bifurcate this, right? So we typically say we're here to execute. Like, you've got a brand vision. We are the ones that can execute it for you at scale. So when you're all of a sudden opening locations by the 10s, the 100s quickly, right? Like, we're able to just like, okay, we have the brand in a box ready to go. We'll just line it up and ship it out. Like, we've got a very strong logistics operation that, like, so I mean, we've got the machinery. We were running, 2 shifts of some super high power. We got the EFI H5 and the H3, and we're like running these things. I'm talking like massive printers and then the logistics operation to get them out the door. So we have high octane printing capabilities, fabrication. So this is where some of the creativity comes in. We'll do value engineering on some of the fabricated signs. So an example would be we do this droplet or driplet for the Drip Bar franchise, which is, it's acrylic, it's layered with, it's beautiful, a blue droplet, but it's has to be put together piece by piece. Anyway, I'll cut to the chase on that. That's the kind of thing that we do design. That we looked at what they had in their brand guidelines and we came up with a vision for that. But when it comes to, we're not a marketing company though. So we're there to execute on, okay, what do you want for wall covering? These are your brand colors. This is what you have. We'll print it. We're there to execute that. So
do you guys do exterior signage too?
We do. Yep. Okay. We'll do channel letters. We'll do the tenant panels for the pylon signs. So that's a big. We're more known for the interiors, right? That's a big focus, but we do exteriors as well.
Yeah, like we talked about a little bit earlier, the Planet Fitness and their gear looking logos.
We make that.
Stuff.
Yep. The gear. That's us with the thumb sticking up, the thumbs up. Yep, that's us. We make those.
Okay, that's well known. That's a big one.
It's an iconic piece. Actually, I got to learn how to make one of those recently. I was picking the brains of some of the guys, and I wanted to learn get more hands on. So I got to learn to make one of those, and fun experience.
So one of the benefits I'd imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, for a franchisor, right, is once you guys establish that package you're talking about, is you're going to open up a location, franchise. Does the franchisee contact you, or does the franchisor put you in touch? And then I'm assuming you just already know, like, here's what you need. And so it takes a lot off the franchisor's plate in this.
Yeah. In the ideal scenario, we first get in with the franchisor. We get the brand totally lined up. We get all the thing, the Pantone colors, the materials. We create files and, create SKUs for all these items. So the whole thing, we have an onboarding process that will typically take, we won't do a first location quickly. We're going to make sure we get everything buttoned up. So we're going to have 90 days before a first location to make sure we cover all the bases. And so once that is ready, right, we get the whole brand in a box ready to go, then ideally introduced to the franchisees. And then from that point, it's a quick process. We have the whole thing ready to scale. So it's like 14 business days average for us from, again, once the brand is onboarded, from introduction to the franchisee to boom, here you go. We provide guidance, for example, too, on like when the paint should go on the wall and how much time you need for the paint to outgas before you apply a wall vinyl to it so that it's not going to end up peeling. We provide guidance on things like that, best practices. But yeah, we're there to execute, and we're there to uphold what's best for brand consistency for the franchisors. And that's what it's all about, the partnering. And I like the concept of, and so our marketing vision, which Derek Abelman, who is one of the people I admire most in franchising, and I love his vision for how we go to market and coming up with the whole ampersand concept. And it's all about us and your brand, right? We're not the hero of the story. The brand is the hero of the story. And we're there to help the hero on their quest to, conquer the demons of inefficiency or brand inconsistencies, right? That come up when there's a patchwork of various sign vendors that are not printing on the same printers. So you have some possible inconsistencies of color. So we solve that challenge. We're always printing, calibrating on the same machines. And, but we have the ampersand is our logo. Like we have that very much embedded in a lot of our marketing materials, because it really is. We don't take on one-off projects. We take on brands that have tangible growth in the pipeline, and they're at that moment where their growth is coming fast enough that they can't afford to be battling those demons of inconsistency and inefficiency.
I like that focus too on your end too, right? That's a smart move in the sense that you're not targeting every single person that needs a sign. You're focusing on long-term relationships.
Correct.
With partners that is residual, work over time.
Yeah.
So.
And it is, we have to have difficult conversations sometimes because we generate goodwill, and all of a sudden you have to tell someone, sorry, your brand is not at a place yet where we can work together. And it's like, that's a tough conversation to have that I don't necessarily enjoy, but part of it, because it ultimately is like, that's how we're profitable, is that we invest in a brand. We look at, does this brand have its package together? Is it ready to go? Is it ready to be scaled? And then,
because there's an investment on your part, right?
We invest a lot in a brand, right, up front, and it's a goodwill investment too. We devote a lot of our human resource time to like making sure we get the Pantone colors, just right, the way it's going to print out on this particular substrate, right? So there's a whole process that goes in. It's detailed. It's a big investment up front. So yeah, we don't take on one-off projects. If a local company says, hey, can you help us with it? Sorry, we're happy to refer another sign company that might do a fantastic job for you. But yeah, so it's all about the scalability and helping to execute on a brand sign package with utter consistency and big value engineering focus too. If we can identify a way to fabricate a sign in a way that is lighter so it ships more affordably,
Right.
or that it uses materials that don't cost as much, then we always present value engineered options. And it's a big focus. So you're able to reduce material and shipping costs while maintaining the integrity of the brand. That's a huge focus for us.
I love it. I think we're going to close out with that. Do you want to tell people where they can find both the company and if they want to reach out to you, maybe your LinkedIn or anything?
Sure, yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn a ton at Pete Lankarge, Lankarge.
I'll put it on the screen
on
too, but for the audio.
Perfect, yeah. And my Twitter account is at Pete Lankarge. I am also a musician, so if you're looking for my band, that is under a stage name. That is Pete LaGrange, which is a longer story in itself, because people don't tend to pronounce Lankarge right. You're not alone on that one. That's the reason that came about. But just like the old ZZ Top song, LaGrange. But yeah, Pete LaGrange and the Ghost Riders is the name of the band. And we have some music up on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, wherever you stream your music. But would love for you guys to check me out there. But Adam, dude, it's been a pleasure. And also Northeast Color can be found. We're very active on LinkedIn there as well. And as of recently, we have a Twitter account or X account, which is at Northeast_color. So find us there. But Adam, thank you again. This has been an absolute pleasure. Great conversation, man. Wide ranging and
I think it was good. We mixed things up from my traditional interviews, right? Like, by the way, let me know in the comments, anybody on here, on a rating, whatever you want, just tell me what you thought about the content today. I appreciate Pete, being my guinea pig with mixing things up here. So
happy to do it.
If you guys enjoyed it, let us know. And Pete, it's been an honor, and I'll make sure all the credentials and everything are up on screen with the editor. And
perfect.
Yeah, man. Well, let's get out of here, and I'm going to get a drink and go to bed.
That's good.
If you enjoyed part 2 and haven't listened to part 1 yet, be sure to check it out. But first, don't forget to support the show by following and giving Distilled Wisdom a review on the platform you're listening. It's the best way to support bringing this content to you and the world.
I'm Refresh Man, and I'm here to empower you to take charge of your destiny. Are you tired of working for someone else? Do you dream of making a difference in your community and unleashing your full potential? Then look no further than Refresh Franchising. With us by your side, you can start your own heroic business venture with the unwavering support and cutting-edge resources you need to conquer your goals. Our franchise model is like a super serum that will give you the strength to succeed. Refresh provides extensive training, ongoing mentorship, and an established brand with a loyal customer base. Plus, you'll become part of a heroic league of entrepreneurs who serve as allies on your journey towards greatness. And the best part, you won't have to waste time building your business from scratch like some kind of neophyte. With Refresh Franchising, you'll hit the ground running at lightning speed and unlock the key to heroic financial success. So gather your courage, summon your inner superhero, and visit refreshfranchising.com to launch your heroic franchise journey. Always remember, together, we can achieve greatness.